my song in the forest clouds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? Many drops are in the ocean deep and wide. Sunlight bounces off the ripples to the sky. What to give you, what to call you, who am I? I am empty, time flies from me, what is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts. Take our breath and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hands and let us work to shape our art. Our opening words this morning are by that most prolific of authors, Anonymous. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Welcome, good people, to our flower communion service, marking the last service of what used to be called the church year, that period from ingathering with its water communion on the second Sunday of September to the third Sunday in June. Rest assured, however, we have a full slate of summer services ahead of us, beginning next Sunday with historian Jim Smart presenting his service, Theodore Parker, Saint with a Crooked Halo. I am sure you will want to join us, virtually, of course. The Keene Unitarian Universalist Church was founded in 1824 by a host of people who left their former congregation because they wanted to hear a more liberal religious message from the pulpit on Sundays. As we approach the beginning of our third century here in Keene, much has changed. Nonetheless, we continue to promote freedom of conscience within our congregation, the use of reason in the search for truth, and public witness, community service, and action in the pursuit of justice in all its many forms: environmental, racial, economic, and affectional. Once again, I say, welcome. And now, as Susie Erickson-West comes forward to light our chalice, I offer these chalice lighting words by Marjorie Montgomery. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift.
Today's story is Wanda's Roses by Pat Brisson. One morning in early May, as Wanda was walking to school, she noticed something in the vacant lot on the corner of Fuller and Hudson. She walked over to get a better look and was surprised to see a bush about 2 feet tall. So it had been there for a while, and she was wondering why she had never noticed it before. She took a good look. The branches were bare, but thorny. Thorny. "A rose bush," said Wanda. "My very own rose bush." Of course, she knew it wasn't her very own. It was a vacant lot. Somebody owned it, although nobody ever seemed to care about it, judging by the piles of junk and trash laying around. So Wanda decided that she would take care of the rose bush and make it her very own. She didn't have time to do anything about it right then. She was on her way to school, but she thought about it all day. She thought about it in art, when she drew pictures of roses. She thought about it in library, when she looked for books about roses. And she thought about it in science, when she asked so many questions about roses and raising them that her teacher finally said, "Wanda, the lesson is on electricity. Please." On the way home, Wanda did have time to stop and do something about it, so she put her school bag down and began to move some of the piles of trash to the curb to be picked up. Mrs. Turner came by on the sidewalk, pushing her little daughter in the stroller, and said, "Wanda, what a nice project, cleaning up that vacant lot." And Wanda said, "Well, thank you, but I'm not actually just cleaning. I'm moving the trash so that my rose bush will get more sun." And Mrs. Turner said, "Rose bush? Where?" So Wanda showed her the bush, and Mrs. Turner tapped her face thoughtfully for a minute and said, "Wanda, I'm not sure that's a rose bush." And Wanda said, "Oh yeah, absolutely. You'll see, in a few weeks this lot will be full of roses." Mrs. Turner walked on with her baby in the stroller and thought, "If that's a rose bush, I'm the Queen of England." But she didn't say anything. The next day after school, Wanda had time again, so she stopped and put her book bag down, and she was struggling with a really big door that someone had dumped in the lot, having trouble moving it, thinking that her rose bush might need air as well as sun, when Mr. Claudel, who was on his way home from work, saw her struggling, and he stopped to help her. "This is a great project, Wanda. The lot already looks better, some of this trash being moved." And she said, "Thank you, but I'm not just moving the trash. My rose bush needs air as well as sun." And Mr. Claudel said, "Rose bush?" So Wanda showed him, and he said, "Wanda, I am no gardener for sure, but I don't know if that's a rose bush." And Wanda said, "Oh yes, absolutely. You'll see, in a few weeks this lot will be full of the most sweet-smelling roses you have ever seen." Mr. Claudel finished helping her and dusted off his hands and said, "Well, good luck, Wanda." And as he walked away, he thought, "If that's a rose bush, I will eat my hat." A few days later, Wanda was again clearing trash after school when Mrs. Giacomoni looked out from her window, which overlooked the vacant lot. She called down, "Wanda, what are you doing?" And Wanda said, "I'm cleaning this up so my rose bush will have sun and fresh air." And Mrs. Giacomoni said, "Wait just a second, dear." And she came downstairs with a couple of really big trash bags and a dustpan and brush, and she held open the bags so that Wanda could sweep up some of the broken glass and other small bits of trash and dump them into the trash bags. And then Mrs. Giacomoni said, "Wanda, show me your rose bush." So Wanda showed her, and Mrs. Giacomoni said, "You know, honey, I've been living here for 10 years, and I have never seen a rose bush in this lot." And Wanda said, "No, it's new." And Mrs. Giacomoni said, And Wanda said, "You'll see. In a few weeks, this lot will be filled with the biggest roses anyone's ever seen." Mrs. Giacomoni walked back to her apartment thinking, "Boy, I hope that child isn't too disappointed when there's no roses. That never has been a rose bush, and it never will be." The next week, when Wanda walked to school and noticed that her rose bush still didn't have any roses on it, she went to the school library to talk to Ms. Jones. She asked her for some books about raising roses and what maybe her rose bush might need, and Mrs. Jones suggested water. She said if it has enough sun and enough air, maybe it needs some water. Wanda thought that was a really good idea, so that day after school, she put down her book bag and walked across the street to Mr. Sanchez's butcher shop. And Mr. Sanchez said, "Absolutely, I can give you a bucket of water, Wanda, but what do you want it for?" So she told him, "I'm watering my rose bush." And he said, "Well, that's great, but where is your rose bush?" And she showed him through the window, pointing to the bare, thorny branches of her 2-foot-high rose bush in the vacant lot. She took the bucket and went to water the rose bush, and Mr. Sanchez shook his head. And when she came back with the empty bucket, he said, "Wanda, I don't know if that's a rose bush." And she said, "It is. It is a rose bush. And now that it has water, very soon that lot will be full of beautiful roses. You'll see." So Wanda took her book bag and went on home, and Mr. Sanchez started thinking about what the vacant lot would look like if it were full of roses. But he didn't really think it was a rose bush either. The next week, Wanda wrote out some invitations and passed them out to her friends. And the invitations said, "Please come for tea and roses at the vacant lot at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning." And she gave one to Mrs. Turner and Mr. Claudel, and Mrs. Giacomoni, of course, Miss Jones at the library, who'd been so thoughtful about the water, and Mr. Sanchez. And when she gave her invitation to Miss Jones, she said, "Oh, Wanda, I'd love to come see your rose bush. I'll bring the muffins." Now remember, Miss Jones had only heard about the rose bush, but had never seen it. On Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, there was Wanda in the vacant lot with a thermos jug of iced tea, some paper cups, and the adults who came to join her were surprised to find that her rose bush was covered with giant paper flowers. They all said how surprised they were, and Wanda said, "Well, the rose bush hadn't given me any roses, so I thought it was time for me to give it some roses." After everybody had had their tea and their muffins that Miss Jones had brought, the adults had a surprise for Wanda. Each of them had brought a real rose bush. Mr. Claudel had brought a couple shovels, and they planted the rose bushes all over the vacant lot that Wanda had cleaned up. And sure enough, just as Wanda had promised everyone, the vacant lot was full of the biggest, sweetest smelling roses any of them had ever seen.
We begin our journey toward a time of silent reflection with these words by the 20th century pastor, theologian, and mystic, Howard Thurman. And Thurman said, "In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of the holy, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in good times or in tempests, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Now let us enter the silence, breathing in and breathing out, knowing that we are not alone in wishing a peaceful heart and an open mind. Blessed be, and blessed are we. The words for our offering today are by Ellen Johnson Fay. The offering is a sacrament of the Free Church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join us. As we have been suggesting for these past 3 months of virtual services, now is the time to write your pledge check to send to the church. Or you may wish to use the donate button on our website, which gives you many options of payment. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values.
Here we go. Now don't put any coffin between me and the ground. It's fed and clothed me all the years I've been around. To see the sunshine rise up and hear the music play, just lay the soil around me. I want to be that way. Going home, alive in the spirit everywhere, tending the garden of eternal life. Lord, I'm going home. Now don't put any marker or measure off a space. There's only so much world and time no graveyard can replace. Survival's evolution, revolving to the core. Let me be fertilizer, bringing life to fore. Going home, alive in the spirit everywhere, tending the garden of eternal life. Lord, I'm going home. Now don't put any coffin between me and the ground. Just lay the soil around me and scatter seeds around. I'll bring food and beauty to those who follow me, today and tomorrow, along the pathway home. Going home, alive in the spirit everywhere, tending the garden of eternal life. Lord, I'm going home.
This is actually the most fraught part of the church year for me. A little time in this final service of the church year to thank people, all the good work they've done for the church. There are too many to thank. There is always the danger of forgetting someone. Some people go about their service rather like do-gooding ninjas, silent but complete. I think I would start with the people right before me now, the worship team, Donna Dirth, our music director, and Carl Jacobs, who's been in on many of our virtual service thus far. Susie Erickson West, who's just been dynamite singing. Good to have Jill Hall back telling stories and telling them so well. And David Tubner, who has really been a joy to work with and is so very talented and able to make our services look so professional. Even when we started them and were a little nervous, to say the least. There's the Board of Trustees under the able leadership of John Walter, who's done and demonstrated through action, not just words, how to lead a group of people. And particularly its outgoing members who deserve recognition. Carol White, who served ably through all three phases of the presidential grouping 3-year term. John Lowry, who began as our treasurer 6 years ago and then became our clerk for 3 of those 6 years at the end. And as well, I'm sure I'm forgetting someone here now who's going out. But all the members deserve recognition. All the staff deserve recognition. We are a world that runs so much on expectations and demands, and often too little thanks. The staff, though they are employees, they are so dedicated and capable. Yet there is enough work to go around, and it is often in those times that you find your place, even as importantly as when you are sitting in the pews. I want you to take a minute now and just close your eyes and think of somebody I forgot to thank. Picture that person who wasn't mentioned. Okay. Now, it's your assignment not to tell me about it, but to go find them or call them or send them a card and show your appreciation to them on my behalf and on yours. To everyone of the Keene Unitarian Universalist congregation, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. Our reading this morning is by the great Sophia Lyon-Fahs, religious educator of the 20th century, the whole 20th century. We gather in reverence before the wonder of life, the wonder of this moment, the wonder of being together so close, yet so apart. Each hidden in our own secret chamber, each listening, each trying to speak, yet none fully understanding, none fully understood. We gather in reverence before all intangible things that eyes see not, nor ears can detect, that hands can never touch, that space cannot hold, and time cannot measure. The message this morning is called Flowers to a Fare Thee Well. What a visionary that Wanda was. I loved how the main character in Pat Brisson's story, Wanda's Roses, that Jill shared with us earlier this morning. How she found something she thought could be beautiful. A little lifeless shrub in the junk pile jumble of a vacant corner lot in her neighborhood, and gave it a chance to blossom. Wanda knew that she could make it happen, reviving the little shrub that she was sure was in fact a beautiful rose in need of a helping hand to bloom. It would be the glory of the neighborhood. So, as visionaries will, Wanda concentrated on the needs of the rose with a laudable singleness of purpose. She did her homework, studying what roses needed to thrive, asking questions of the experts, changing the environment of the presumptive rose bush that nobody else could see, accepting the help offered by various adults without taking onto herself their skepticism. And what happened? Well, with some creative thinking, some adaptation, and the help of an enthralled, mostly doubtful and yet caring group of adults, what happened was exactly what Wanda had said all along would happen. In a few weeks, the abandoned, trash-strewn lot was filled with the sweetest smelling roses you ever saw. In the end, there was still a bit of work to be done, as there is always some work to do, and a tea party with muffins for Wanda and her band of adults to enjoy together, and there were roses to a fare-thee-well, both lovely paper ones created by Wanda for her still barren shrub, and fragrant living ones that the adults might help to fill, that the adults' hope might help to fill out the scene. On this Flower Communion Sunday, I want to draw out some fine points that even a nearly 200-year-old church might learn from Wanda's example and story. First, we need people with vision. Not everyone needs to be a visionary, and sometimes a clear vision arises from the center of a community like sparks from a campfire. But it is vitally important that we know our vision when we see it and dedicate ourselves to making it materialize. Second, we need that aforementioned dedication, which needs to be shared by all, not just left to the Wandas of the congregation. This is that dedication of time, treasure, and talent that we expend freely on common adventures that we believe in. Yet it is always an individual's decision to spend anything at all, to come or go, to jump in or hang back. At first, it might be given with some trepidation, a little worry, a sense not unlike that found at the top of the first hill on a roller coaster, that always fresh, never stale feeling that comes from entering into the mystery of co-creation. We must also be encouraging people to give all that they can, because in a church, it is the giving that is the profoundest reward. Third, you need to open up the circle, accepting help when offered. Howard Thurman had said something connected to this point. Thurman wisely said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." People don't want to just be preached to and be handed a job to do. They want to become alive. They want to be asked questions about what they value and need. If we are to become the congregation that we envision, I have heard the vision from many lips. I too have contributed my ongoing thoughts on the subject, but it is in the dreaming and the doing together, building alliances as needed and sharing the stage at every stage, from seeing what is needed to imagining what might be possible as we reach for it, to researching our assumptions and creating a plan with consequent strategies, to doing the work, celebrating our successes, and evaluating our results together. In these things, we actually experience liftoff, flight, sometimes smooth, sometimes turbulence, land, and preferably do so on our feet. Fourth and finally, we need to remember that the destination hoped for when the vision was first articulated, in fact, may become a secondary benefit, secondary to the community you built or build upon, to the sense of commitment that some mistake for pride, and the compassion that blossoms in the spirit of helping out, of fighting the good fight, of transforming something ugly or too long ignored into a life-giving, world-shaking experiment in beauty, leaving all who contributed to it to experience their own transition from being to becoming, belonging to embracing the present while we are still in the present. People of the Keene Unitarian Universalist congregation, it is a joy to serve you in this most auspicious and confounding season. I see in you, in us, in our Unitarian Universalist Association, our UU gathering principles, and our humble little mission, the promise of a new beginning, a fresh start, a profound flowering that has been some time in revealing. Let us make the most of this summer, both in what pleasure we can derive from it and what dreams to which we can put a plan for the good of the church. I have enjoyed this year with you more than I should probably say, considering the great, ongoing, and deadly COVID-19 virus and the other troubles going on about us. I expect you understand there is much about which all of us can be grateful, despite the news of the day and the discord of the season. This is the day for us to tend our ground, to help out our neighbors, to continue clearing out the ugly and outworn, to bring renewed energy, to provide nutriment and water to our collective dreams. It is often in the troubled days that, despite the refuse and poor appearance of a place or a time, with a little love, the sweetest, most beautiful roses grow. So let it be as it should be. We come now to that time of our flower communion, which was a ceremony begun by Norbert Koppik, who at one time led the largest Unitarian congregation in the world in Prague before World War II. And by the end of World War II, he and his daughter had died in one of the camps. Koppik developed this ceremony for Easter, the return of spring and the return of the green. But I think it's just appropriate in New Hampshire at this time of year. So I want to use his words. First, the flower communion prayer. In the name of Providence, which implants in the seed the future of the flower, and in our hearts the longing for people to live in harmony. In the name of the highest, in whom we move, and who makes the mother and father, the brother and sister, the lover and loner what they are. In the name of sages and great religious leaders who sacrifice their lives to hasten the coming of the age of mutual respect. Let us renew our resolution, sincerely to be real kindred, real brothers and sisters, regardless of any kind of bar which estranges us from each other. In this holy resolve, may we be strengthened knowing that we are God's family, that one Spirit, the Spirit of love, unites us, and endeavor for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen. And now, if this were another year and there were flowers before me, I would say the consecration words that he wrote for the consecration of the flowers. And soon you'll see pictures of yourselves with flowers in your gardens, in your homes, here at the church. But let's consecrate those flowers. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in the world. And now, let us begin our flower communion. Donna? The good words for our leave-taking today come from Sarah Moores Campbell. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown. Go in peace and with a purpose.
Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and you, its only seed. It's the heart afraid of breaking that never learns to dance. It's the dream afraid of waking that never takes a chance. It's the